When we first moved here, we looked at each other and were like, okay, we're planting roots. This is our home.
Just when those family roots were growing so well,
Never in a million years did we think we'd have to leave here.
The Moore family found themselves on deadline to get out of their 4-bedroom house.
Kind of happened out of nowhere.
Andrea and Trey both lost their jobs.
With everything, with the shutdowns, our business got hit pretty hard.
He worked in the fitness industry.
They just told me that I wasn't needed anymore.
She worked in childcare.
Times are really tough, and unfortunately, it was put food on the table, keep the lights on, or pay this house.
Unable to make rent, the Moores got a notice in the mail 3 days before Christmas. Pay or face a court-ordered eviction. An eviction can ruin a person's finances like a bankruptcy. A scarlet E that follows renters around for years, making it hard to get new housing, loans, or even a job.
It was very, very hard.
The Moores had no choice but to try to pay their back rent and leave. They're now among 150,000 people in Colorado on the brink of eviction. And studies have shown 2 out of 3 people will actually leave their home before an eviction is filed in court to avoid that scarlet letter E. It's like an eviction that's hidden.
I would say most evictions are hidden, right? There's a massive displacement problem because we just don't keep records on these kinds of things. And so until it gets to a filing, no one knows what's happening.
Zach Newman runs the nonprofit, the COVID-19 Eviction Defense Project.
I would say we're certainly in the middle of an eviction crisis right now, both in Colorado and in the United States.
Government moratoriums that have helped people like the Moores stay in their homes during the pandemic have kept court-ordered evictions abnormally low, down 60% compared to 2 years ago. Sounds good, but the bans on COVID-related evictions don't stop back rent from piling up.
The debt picture here is terrifying, and there's no real good place for it to go. I mean, most tenants who are at the brink of eviction are never going to be able to pay that debt back.
We can see renters are rushing to get a piece of the billions of dollars in COVID relief the federal government has been sending to the states. Last year, Colorado renters and landlords applied for $44 million in emergency assistance. If there's a sudden crisis of need, this past month proves it. In January alone, Colorado renters and landlords applied for $52 million in help, more than all of 2020.
I think there's been a really significant fear of a cliff in the absence of money.
But as long as people are making rent, the Colorado Apartment Association doesn't see a problem.
No, we are not in an eviction crisis. It's been predicted now for 10 months, and it's continuing not to happen.
Drew Hamrick's group represents landlords. He says more than 95% of Coloradans are making on-time rent payments.
Payments are strong, evictions are at an all-time low, and there's no indication of that changing anytime soon. There is not a cliff or tsunami looming on the horizon.
He acknowledges most people leave their homes with just a threat of eviction.
Yeah, there's lots of circumstances where people voluntarily surrender a rental unit, from one party to the next, and that happens in the vast majority of cases.
Probably the most stress I've ever felt in my life.
Andrea said she tried getting rental assistance through a nonprofit, but the money never came. Strangers from around the country stepped in.
I was speechless.
And created a GoFundMe.
Within a week, we had reached our goal.
The GoFundMe money helped the Moores pay their back rent, and their landlord did not file an official eviction, but would not renew their lease. They're downsizing to a 2-bedroom apartment.
It's been tough, the whole process.
This is actually a very common thing.
Because of the situation, you now have less.
And especially this year more than any other year.
A look behind the door of one Colorado family's hidden eviction. There's another plague out there.
I think it's widespread.
Hidden and elusive.
It was really pretty unnerving.
And boy, we are hearing about the symptoms of a major financial pandemic.
Obviously, there are some pretty slick folks out there.
Colorado unemployment fraud.
I think someone is trying to milk their way into getting funds.
Tina is a bookkeeper for several companies who says she's getting bogus unemployment notifications.
It just seems in the last 6 weeks, all of a sudden, I'm getting verifications for terminated employees that are not terminated.
You are never unemployed. You've been employed the whole time.
That's correct. Yes.
Darren just found out at work someone used his name to file for unemployment. He froze his credit.
My heart just kind of dropped. It's like, oh, gee, now what's going to happen? You
And
know,
we
you just
continue
have
to
no
hear from
idea,
viewers
so.
who are getting those unemployment debit cards out of the blue.
Every Saturday, I started getting cards addressed to at my address.
We've learned Colorado's Department of Labor put a hold on 1.1 million unemployment claims because it suspects they are fraudulent. Behind that number, scammers from across the world connecting to Colorado's system with stolen identities. 1.1 million. That means more fraudulent claims have been filed than real claims.
We're now in the fraud business, and a year ago we were not.
Joseph Barella is the head of Colorado's Labor Department, which might as well be called the Fighting Fraud Department. Is the system too overwhelmed at this point to separate the good guys from the bad guys?
I think it is, and I think I want to reassure Coloradans, both on the worker side and claimant side, but on the employer side. We are stopping fraud as quickly as we can. We have 50 triggers in place that will stop payments going out to a claimant.
The state says since it caught fraud early, it hasn't paid out as much as other states. Since the pandemic began, Colorado's paid scammers $6 million. Compare that to the national estimate of $36 billion. California paid out $11 billion. $6 million seems pretty small. How can you assure us that that's an accurate number?
To the best of our knowledge, now we think that we have in Colorado some very good fraud triggers that we put in place.
The state is quick to say that $6 million is actually quite small when you compare it to the $7 billion in legit help it paid out over the last year. But that $6 million is a big number to those stuck at home still waiting to get a few $100s like Lori in Jefferson County.
And the amount that I'm getting is small, but regardless, I need it to sustain my livelihood and try to continue my business.
Her unemployment has been on hold for a few weeks because of fraud. She filed a police report in hopes someone from the state will answer her phone calls.
I just want to be able to talk to somebody that can help me, that can explain the situation.
What do you tell our viewers who are in a place where they can't get paid, they can't get a hold of your agency?
We know our call centers are bombarded.
Barella says people should keep trying the new online system launched last month that's designed to verify identity. But with so much money and so many good and bad guys trying to get at it, the Department of Labor, aka the Fighting Fraud Department, can't win every bout.
Just somebody tell me that they're working on it. Give me some idea of what I need to do, what they're doing. Just anything that reassures me that resolution is on the way.
Jeremy Hohola, 9 News.